So there's a couple of things that I want to mention straight away. I've seen a lot more people over the past couple of weeks talk about Fujimoto's artwork and that it's increasingly getting more rough, more sketchy, a little bit wild and all over the place. On one hand, I agree. I think there is kind of issues going on with his art style. On the other hand, I think there's probably good reasons for it. We know that Fujimoto can take breaks. We know that he usually switches between weekly and bi-weekly, sometimes even longer if he needs it. Currently, this little arc right here is in a weekly format, so we're seeing kind of, I would say, the consequences of that, no? Fujimoto's a great artist. If you've read Fire Punch, Chainsaw Man, even any of his one-shots, old and new, you can see just how refined it can truly get. When he has time to cook, create, and master whatever vision he's trying to get out there, it looks fabulous. Increasingly, I see more and more people vocal about it without potentially realizing the ramifications of what he's actually going through. We don't know if he's sick, we don't know how many assistants he uses or has, we don't know really who's on his team in regards to publishing and Jump Plus. All we know is that it's different. We know he has more time than usual, which is great, but we also know that he's working directly on a lot of other things. We don't know the extent of how much he's working on those things, but one can assume with Chainsaw Man's movie, and more specifically Look Back's movie, which is coming out very soon, maybe a lot more of his attention is focused there. It doesn't really line up why he would want to do a weekly thing right now, but maybe that has more to do with the story he wants to tell at this moment. And there's a really interesting way that you can tell. Over the past handful of weeks, you've probably noticed that Fujimoto has taken very small steps, very slight incremental movement in story development, which some people really enjoy. It creates a very intimate, slow, thought-provoking experience, but on the other hand, it also creates pretty dragged out experience. It can be annoying, it can be frustrating that we're kind of walking in place, and seeing every single interaction within that walking cycle can be long, can be tiring, it can be even repetitive, and sometimes it gets to the point of just get there, get to the point. I think that feeling that some people might have, mixed with the artwork potentially not living up to their standards, creates a pretty vulnerable, negative, even turbulent experience. So I'm curious to see where a lot of you sit. For myself personally, I enjoy what Chainsaw Man does every single week. I like that it doesn't have spoilers, for example. I like that Fujimoto can create the story the way that he wants to. I can recognize that parts of his artwork is very rough and sketchy, but I also know that he can draw really well when he needs to. So I usually boil it down to that there's other stuff going on that we just don't see. Maybe he's tired, maybe he's sick, we just don't know. I still have fun with these chapters. I still enjoy them. This chapter, I think, provides a lot of great insight to the Fami, Asa, and Yoru dynamic, which is really interesting to me. We got a lot more information in regards to Fami's powers and how it actually works, a little bit. Again, it doesn't move all too far. It takes a couple of steps past the previous chapter and the one before that. So while we're moving in a really great direction and building that hype and excitement and anticipation, which can be very slow and sluggish for a lot of people, it usually pays off really well, at least in my opinion. That's what I've come to learn with Fujimoto with part 2. If he's building up to a moment that's pretty big, pretty massive, potentially well drawn and well visualized, he's going to take a little bit more time to get there so he can either prep for it on the side or just have more time to deal with it in total. Now, I've always really enjoyed Fami. I love her character. I love her design and what she represents, and I guess the exposure and aura that she has within this story. She's menacing, but also cute and quirky and a little bit awkward. I mean, if you see her run throughout these past couple of chapters, she has her arms down, and it's the most uncomfortable, weird looking thing, and it's just part of her character. It feels natural but weird. I like that. It helps build a lot more identity for these characters, and I was always worried that the horsemen would be kind of homogenous, that they would all kind of feel the same because they all represent the same thing even through different stages of evolution. And while we haven't seen different versions of them other than Control, I feel comfortable saying that they most likely all embody a different sense of identity every single rotation. So every time they reborn back into the world, even though they represent this thing or that power, they're very much different. Fami is a great example of someone who has a ton of personality, not only molded by the devil that she is, but human society as well. Obviously the head tilt, very iconic, but this bird is interesting. She doesn't spawn Fall, she doesn't spawn another Primal Fear or another really strong devil, she spawns Guillotine. This bird being pigeon-like, skeletal body and a big guillotine blade, very cool design. Simple, but effective. The issue is that this devil doesn't actually work the way that Fami wants it to. It completely ignores her. So instead of killing everyone instantly, it cuts all of the gun pieces in parts and cuts all of their clothes off, which humorous. The concern with this is that we find out that the devils that Fami spawns aren't at full strength, and it has a restriction, so she tries not to use it too much. We don't know the restriction, she likes to keep it a secret, typical Fami fashion, but these two things we can infer a couple of different big conversations. The devil's not being at full strength. The thought that I had, how powerful is Fall truly then? Because we know that Fall, incredibly strong, we've seen that. We know that the after effects of Fall was very powerful, having massive gravitational devastations throughout the earth. That's pretty strong. Now I'm wondering if that's just because it's a primal fear, or if the so-called restriction is a little bit different between each devil. Maybe a mixture of both, maybe none at all. I'm just gonna lob it up to Fall being a primal fear and that being a weakened version of her is still incredibly powerful, which would make sense to me. The restriction, I like to think of this being a starvation restriction. So we know that for Fami to control devils, she has to starve them. It'd be very funny if she had to starve herself with them. And the more that she starved with them, the longer she starved them, the more powerful that they might actually become. That is the restriction. Why I think it works well with her character is because she loves food. She is the complete opposite of the power or identity that she technically represents, being famine. Every time we see her, she's usually trying to eat something or trying to get some sort of food or trying to do this or trying to do that in relation to food. So it would make sense to me that the crux of her devil abilities being starvation, she has to do it with them. There's probably an offhanded restriction as well, meaning that she can't just spawn the biggest, most powerful thing every single time, as it most likely has a toll, because why spawn guillotine if you could spawn Fall again? There must be a restriction there as well. Makes sense to me. Good way to keep balance. I do really like the back and forth between Yoru and Asa. You don't see it much, but the way they transition in and out of the mindset or like the takeover body is really, really cool to me. We're seeing more and more of that influence of Yoru getting stronger, being able to take people with ease. There's some great panels of her that doesn't even really look like her, but it is great to see. But before she even does it, Asa is the one to deflect an attack. Simple, easy, it's cute that they even complement each other. I do hope that this becomes more consistent, more evolving over time, which it definitely will, because they never used to be like this. It was kind of always one or the other. Now that we're switching back and forth pretty much on a dime and they both can kind of fight, it works really well. Now they managed to get through these people pretty easily. No thanks to the bird that's squawking a ton in this chapter, by the way, just doing nothing. You would never guess who actually appears. It's not Chainsaw Man. It's three individuals that we know. Kobeni brother, fake saw guy, the main one, the club leader, and the big dude with the eye patch. Now the leader actually presses Fami, and for the first time we seen a spinal cord. We've seen this man's true identity. At first I thought he was gonna fold, but he's done. He's fed up. He's even protecting the people behind him. He's scared, desperate, very much overly loud and aggressive, and they're not here for them obviously, but they're now out in the open of their prison cell. But I do respect original Fake Saw Man actually speaking his truth, saying that he's done following orders, even kicking them out of the club. That's a big thing. That's a huge step for him. I do love Asa's little response after it, saying that they're not looking for you losers, we're looking for Chainsaw Man, and that just flips his switch. Like after all the aggression that he's just spewed out towards Fami, they're now following them. They want to meet Chainsaw Man. They're big fans, remember? All three of them are following after Fami and Asa. But I love her little design of them running. They look so goofy and out of place, and Fami's just ham-fisted, straight-armed, trying to sprint like that, like a Naruto run but vertical. That is the whole chapter. It's very simple, very straight to the point, very quick. It doesn't really move all too far, but there's enough variety in here, I think, to keep people entertained. It's honestly just a little bit weird. The artwork isn't all too rough in my opinion. I think there's some spots here and there that's like a little bit off or a little bit weird or goofy. That's okay in my opinion. It doesn't really bother me. And I'm curious to see how this all converges together when they do meet Chainsaw Man, because they're going to fight some pretty powerful people, I imagine. So we might actually get the first big raw official fight with Yoru. I'm excited for that. We also just don't know how eager they are to try and take control of Chainsaw Man. Of course, this would be the best time to try and merge with him, to take him under control, and we might actually get this one panel here where Asa and Yoru have weaponized Chainsaw Man into his chainsaw form. I feel like it's not going to be that simple. I wonder what this fight is going to be, and we do have a chapter next week, so we're still on our weekly grind, and I hope that we can pick up just a little bit more of that pace. If we can't, give us a little bit more to chew on. I'd be happy with that. Welcome to the end of the video. If you made it this far, thank you. I appreciate it. Leave a like and subscribe, that'd be nice. Also, check out some of these videos here. The more you watch, the more YouTube recommends me. I love that. YouTube loves that. You'll probably enjoy the video, so why not? Let me know your thoughts on the chapter as well. I'd love to hear them. And with that, I will see you all later.